You are now entering Nick and Melo's hyperspace.
I'm Nick, and my favorite character from Skeleton Crew was no one other than Mr. Neil. He's adorable.
I expected that one. Hi, I'm Carmelo, and my favorite character is KB. I love the
Oh.
nerdiness, and I love the whole story about abilities.
In our journeys through hyperspace, we examine anything and everything Star Wars through the point of view of two lifelong fans, one young, one old, who came together through the will of the Force.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking and enjoying and reviewing Skeleton Crew that just ended a couple of weeks ago. And I am in Taiwan right now, teaching my Star
Yes.
Wars course as a Fulbright grant, while Nick is in the deep south in Georgia. So we decided to do it across the globe. We really enjoyed the show, and we wanted to do an episode. It was so refreshing, Nick.
Mhm.
I just loved how joyful and fun, but still moving and emotional it was. And I love that combination. I love
Mhm.
that combination. We did that episode on hope and happy endings.
Yeah.
And this show is about hope and happy endings.
And we got
And
a
so
hopeful, happy ending on this show, so which is
we
nice.
did. We
Yeah.
did. We
Which is
absolutely did. So it's just really fun. So as we do usually with reviews, we're gonna do a section of the episode with no spoilers in case you have not seen the show yet, or maybe you started watching it but you haven't gotten through to the end of, and then we'll switch to spoiler full area.
yeah, well, I was gonna say my initial thoughts of the show. This is probably the one Star Wars show where I had no idea what was going to happen, and I think that really made it so much better. There was very little information about it. We didn't know any of the characters because there's no established character that we know
Right.
that popped in. For me, it was a breath of fresh air because it felt like we're all in the starting point together. There's no like comic book character or novel character going to show up. No character from an animated series that maybe the general audience didn't see. So it was kind of nice to have a ground floor where we all kind of learning as we go.
And I loved that this is sort of set in the same years as The Mandalorian. And so we sort of know when it's happening, but we don't know anything about the story. And I love the twist in this plot were just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really, really fun to get a story, as you say, of new characters, but set in a world that we already know that
Mm-hmm.
that it is the New Republic is in power, the Empire is gone, and so there's this really interesting moment. So we're trying to guess what the story is about, thinking that it's going to be related to the Mandalorian, and then we realize that there are connections, but for the most part, it's a totally separate story.
Yeah.
Totally separate story. So
Yeah. I feel like you could show this to somebody who has only watched the movies, who never watched the Disney Plus shows or the animated shows, and they would feel right at home. Like
absolutely.
it doesn't feel like you need to know anything else. You just need to know kind of the general idea of Star Wars, and you can just hop right in.
When I was watching the show for the second time this week for this episode, I kept thinking, "Wow, if I had been 7 years old watching this, I would have been totally hooked."
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea of wanting to have a real adventure and actually getting the real adventure. Oh my God, that's my dream
Yeah.
when
Well,
I was a kid.
I was going to say, I think Wim is a character who I enjoy. I don't know if he's my favorite, but I enjoy his call for adventure, his desire for adventure, because I think deep down, even as adults watching this, we all can relate to that at some point in our
Yeah,
life as a kid,
yeah.
playing with lightsabers in the playground or playing with our friends at school, making up our own stories with our action figures, just like he does throughout the show. I think it hits the nostalgia strings in a way that I appreciate way more than a things they've done in the past that I wasn't a fan of, where they just say, "Remember this guy? He's back," or "Oh, remember that thing that happened in the first movie."
Right.
Well, this is just nice, kind of touching way of pulling on that nostalgia string.
And I know that online there's been a lot of conversation about, oh, this is Goonies in space. And I actually liked it that it was Goonies in space.
Yeah.
Like I actually really enjoyed all the connections of it's a movie I saw once or twice when it came out back in the 80s. But it was just really, really fun to insert that kind of story into the story of Star Wars. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I really enjoyed is that it was really fun seeing more pirates.
Yeah.
We've been seeing pirates since Clone Wars, since the animated show. And so it's really fun to get more and more about now there's a pirate code, just like there is a bounty hunter's code.
The
Now we
Jedi
have a
Code.
pirate's
Yeah.
code. And so it was really fun sort of adding to the lore of piracy in Star Wars. That was just really fun for me.
You remember, and I think you do. You like the show a lot. Resistance. They have a big plot in that show about
That's right.
pirates,
That's right. That's right.
and
That's
the
right.
New
That's right.
Republic is having issues, kind of maintaining peace with the pirates, and pirates are kind of looting and pirating. So it kind of keeps
Pirating.
it. Yeah, it kind of keeps it in the same realm and makes it feel like, oh, this is going to be an issue later on. This is kind of a starting point of when that issue starts manifesting more.
I had forgotten about the pirates in Resistance, but you're right. This is this whole moment post Empire.
Mhm.
It's sort of written filled with pirates. I had forgotten Resistance. Good point, Mister. Very good point. Very very
so
good point.
that's what I'm here
Um,
for.
and the other thing I really enjoyed, and this I didn't really catch until now that I rewatched the show, um, the whole parallelism between the kids needing to survive, needing to be quote unquote adults, and the adult being so lost
Mm.
because they're trying to follow the rules, and when they try to break the rules, they don't know what to do, and there's
Mhm.
just I found that really really interesting because usually we don't that kind of parenting we don't usually get in Star Wars.
Mm-mm.
There's other kinds, but not something like this.
Yeah.
I remember before the show aired, there was all these conversations about suburban Star Wars,
Yeah.
um, and so it's really interesting now knowing the story. And I'm not going to tell you about the plot yet because we're in the spoiler free area. Um, but it's really interesting now knowing the story and sort of seeing that planet in the context of Star Wars,
Mhm.
and then adding the parents to it. I thought it was really fun.
I loved the parents. Even though they weren't in the show as much as I had wanted or expected, I thought when they were very effective in getting
Mm-hmm.
their point across. And then, like you said, the kids had to learn to grow up a little bit, and the parents kind of had to, I guess, remember what it was like to be a kid because they had
Yep.
forgotten. They'd kind of gotten conformed to their way of living on that planet and the society that they lived in. So it was kind of refreshing, and seeing the bonds between the parents and the kids was very nice. Very nice.
Shall we switch to spoiler?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to get ready
Oh,
to
so I
say
don't,
all
I don't
these
have much else
things.
to say besides
No,
spoiling
that's
it.
fine.
So,
That's fine.
um,
The plot about these hidden planets.
mm,
I want to know more and more. I want
yeah,
comics. I want novels. I want
yes,
more. I am so fascinated. And they keep talking about the old republic. So it seems to be that this was an
ancient.
old,
Yeah,
an old system that has been around for a very long time. And so I was fascinated by that. And it was just really fun how you slowly are putting the pieces together. That moment in the pirate planet when the prostitute is asking, "Are you children?"
yes,
It was just really no, seriously. Where are you from? What do you mean by
yeah,
that? Don't tell me stories right now. Tell me where
no,
you're really from. It was just filled with all sorts of really fun layers and layers and layers, sort of like onion layers
hmm
to get to the bottom of the story. And I thought that was really, really quite fun.
and the twist that I enjoyed and thought was fascinating was that the parents were in on the, hey, we're hidden from the rest of the galaxy, and when you graduate, you're going to find out the truth. And to
Right.
me, it didn't necessarily make it hard to believe, but I just found it a little interesting that no adult in that society was like, what the hell? Like, why are we?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they all just seem to accept it. There's not much questioning, or so it seemed like they were kind of conditioned to accept that way of life, which well, it's
What
not really
I
an issue for me. But I just thought that was
right.
interesting.
What I what I what I wasn't clear on is how much did they really know?
Right.
Um, because
Well, they knew about the barrier.
they know about the barrier, but I don't think they knew about Alderaan and the Galactic Empire or
Mm-mm.
anything like that.
Seems like they were
And
cut
so they
off.
were just aware that this was a way of keeping their way of life, almost like an Amazon indigenous group
Mm-hmm.
trying to stay away from Westernization. But I don't know how much they knew about the outside world because the supervisor did not allow any communication with the outside world.
Mm-mm.
So it's really interesting.
Well, it sounds like too
It's
with
really interesting that we don't know how much they knew,
yeah.
and the supervisor knows about Order 66
I was gonna say that's the
because
last message.
he
Yeah.
does hear that all Jedi's are enemy now.
Mm-hmm.
So he seems to be in contact with the outside world, but I don't know how much the inhabitants knew about the outside world.
Right. Seems like once the Empire took over, they kind of lost communication with what's going
Yep,
on in the galaxy, and which is
yep,
kind of cool because they had stories. So to them, like the Jedi were, they were kind of a myth because they hadn't heard about them in so long. But in real time, it had been a while since anybody actually seen one, and the
correct.
planet was cut off from the rest of the Republic. So I imagine the Jedi probably didn't show up that often. It sounds like because
Yep,
when Jod shows up and impersonates a Jedi, they don't seem like it's they seem like it's been a while since one's been there, so it's a big deal.
right, right, right. Let's talk about the kids,
Oh, the heart and soul of the show.
the heart and soul of the show.
Great characters, great actors too. I will say
Uh-huh,
every
uh-huh.
kid brought their A game, and sometimes with child actors it's a little hard because they're not as experienced and seasoned. But these kids, like I don't know, it just feels like they were born to act because I feel I hope these kids grow up to be really famous stars, but they were really great. I mean, they were so believable.
I
Can't
I
say
have
enough
to
about
take
them.
my I have to take my hat off to the kid that did Neil
Yeah,
because needing to act without showing your face, that's hard to do.
that's very hard, and he did
That's
a
hard to
wonderful job.
do. And I paid attention to his body language, and it was just so just perfect
Hmm.
for the kind of character that he is. And maybe Neil's personality and his personality are similar,
Hmm.
but there's an extra challenge when you can't use your face
Hmm.
um, to communicate all your emotions and your reactions and all of that. And so I thought he did a great job. I mean, Pedro Pascal has done a marvelous job being Mando without showing his face, but
Hmm.
he's an amazing actor.
And he's seasoned. Yeah,
This is the kid
yeah, a child.
trying to do a character that we know nothing about, and so I especially was impressed by the kid doing Neil because he was just
He
really
was
really
fun.
amazing.
He was so
Yeah,
fun.
and he's a wonderful character. I agree
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
he
He's my second favorite.
he to me was the most genuine character. Like he's just so
Mm.
innocent and so
I just
pure.
want to go home.
Yeah, when they were on the one planet, I forget the name of it. The with the like Mad
Oh,
Max,
the warlike
the
Mad Max kind of
warlike.
place. Uh
Yeah,
huh.
and he meets the other kids there, and they're like, he just gives them that like, well, like you just do good because you're supposed to do good. Like there's no other reason, why are we fighting? Uh,
Right.
Kind of refreshing in our day and age to see just pure
Yes.
goodness, which we don't get a lot
Yes.
of in media
Yes.
anymore,
Yes.
especially stuff aimed at kids. It's not always pure goodness, but he's just fun. He just would be. I feel like that would be me as a kid, ideally. I wasn't necessarily like that, but I would love to. I mean, I tried to be like that, just a pure nice kid. And his family was adorable. His relationship with Wim was fun. Um, and my favorite episode, uh, which to me wasn't even the most action packed or adventurous, was the one where Jod just left them and they're stranded on the like spa planet, and they have to get
Oh
there.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
they split off into pairs. My
Mhm.
favorite episode of the whole show reminded me of one of those Clone Wars or Rebels episodes where um, your characters have to kind of work together begrudgingly, and they really learned a lot about each other and grow. That's such a
Yep.
beautiful episode. Such a beautiful episode. And I love how the kids, they didn't go with their preferred friends. They split with
Correct.
a new pair, so they had to
Correct.
learn a new person's way of thinking. So
Yeah,
just a
especially
beautiful.
especially KB and Wim in that episode because they never really interact.
No, that's the
Wim
really.
is always at odds with Fern, but KB is always in the background when that happens.
Mhm.
So it was really interesting having an episode where Wim and KB had to interact directly, like
Mhm.
with each other.
They had to work
And I
together.
thought that was really quite wonderful. One of my favorite moments in the show is when Fern breaks down, sort of like, I
Mhm.
don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I've been doing all these things and I've been basically faking it all the way through, and I don't know what else to do. It was such a beautiful moment of having her being vulnerable
Mhm.
because she's always sort of presented
Headstrong and
herself
yeah,
as strong and assertive, and I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going to lie to you,
confident.
and you're going to believe me.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice having that moment.
Yeah, they all had to go on their own little journey of self discovery. With Neil learning to be a little more brave and take chances, and Wim trying to learn that he can still be effective if he's not like a Jedi, and Fern, like
Right.
you said, being vulnerable. And KB was the one character up until that episode I was kind of like, we don't know much about her. They've kind of kept her in the background, but I'm really glad they gave each kid time to shine and gave them moments.
I love that moment in the story of KB when they get back to the ship and like, how do we turn the ship on? And KB says, well, I think um, this is what 33 did. And she starts like pushing buttons and all of that. And
Yeah.
everybody's sort of like, how do you remember all this stuff? And it's one of the things that I really loved about KB, that she always felt like she was in the background, but she was always paying attention.
Hmm.
Remember at the beginning of the show, she's the one that tells Jod to his face, I don't trust you.
Hmm.
You're hiding
Immediately.
something.
Yeah.
Immediately,
Immediately.
immediately.
The other kids
And
didn't see
so
it.
it's one of the reasons why I liked her so much, because she was not front and center in the show, but she was always alert.
Hmm.
She was always paying attention to what was going on. And I thought that was just a beautiful way of doing it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Jod.
I thought you were going to talk about Neil. Sorry.
Oh,
No, we already talked about him. Oh, I was like, we already talked about him.
not an elephant.
He kind of looks like one. I don't know what he is, but he looks like one. I was like, we just talked about
Let's talk
him.
about the other elephant, the metaphoric elephant in
The
the room.
metaphorical, not the blue one. I got you.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Nick.
Jod. Jod.
Jod.
So I'll tell you, when they announced Jude Law was in the show, I was not concerned, but I was curious because that's a big name. Like he's a
It's a
well-known
huge
actor.
name.
Yeah, he's a
It's a
very well
huge name.
like my grandparents knew who Jude Law is, and my aunt, the people that I know that don't watch Star Wars, they know who Jude Law is. Like he's very popular. Uh, and I wasn't concerned that he couldn't do a good job because I've seen him in other things where I'm like, yeah, he's a great actor. I was just curious, like, would it be believable to see such a recognizable face like that in
Yeah.
Star Wars?
Yeah. I always worry about
Just
things
like
like that.
just like I don't know, this is a little off topic, but Ryan Gosling is apparently in talks to be in a Star Wars movie, which to me is like mind blowing. But so that's kind of the same that reaction I had with Jude Law, and um, at no point in the show did I feel like that's Jude Law. No, I felt John the Nodwood was he embodied the character so well.
Yes.
He just
Yes.
became a very fascinating character and one that I find very interesting.
I I was talking to a friend of mine from Puerto Rico and in the early episodes of the show, and he was a little concerned that the show was going to be a little too safe, like everything was going to be
Hmm.
happy and
That's what I expected.
silly and all of that. And I'm really glad that the show got as dark as it did. Um, I found his character fascinating. I almost said that my favorite character with Jod in the show,
Same. I did
simply
too.
because he's so complex.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the story of his past with being force sensitive and being rescued by a Jedi after Order 66. And he's being trained a little bit before she's killed. And so there's a wonderful background there. But there's also this sort of survival mode that I found really, really, really interesting. I had, and I mentioned to you this before the show, I have a little bit of the issue of the darkness of Jod and the lightness of Jod. Are they coming from the same person? I found a little bit of a writing problem there. It's a minor concern, but it was something that I sort of scratched my head about him a little bit. But I really loved his swaying back and forth between realizing what he's doing but then realizing cold hard credits. That's his mantra, cold hard credits. And so there's this really interesting fluctuation of what he's doing.
Because he has a really great moment with Wim when Wim is upset, and I thought that was cool. And that's when I was like, maybe the show's going to keep it safe, and he's going to be like, let me just get these kids home, and the reward will be making a meaningful connection and being a good mentor. A metaphorical reward.
Oh, interesting.
That's what I thought where it was going to go.
Okay.
And they're gonna get caught up in the Brutus and the pirate gang chasing after them, and he's going to have to save the day. But I like seeing the complexity, and I think it's important for the kids' character development to see that not every nice adult is going to be somebody you want to trust. Just because they present themselves, and like you said, Fern immediately knew something was up. But I think like he had that conversation with Wim. That's like, you can tell he's influenced by the few Jedi teachings that he got. So I think he kind of holds on to those as like just life principles. But I think the way he had to grow up kind of influenced his desires, his worldly desires, I guess you could say.
Because it's really interesting that you pointed out that conversation between Jod and Wim, because Jod is using phrases that we know are from the Jedi.
Literally quotes from
like Qui-Gon Jinn saying, "Your focus determines your reality."
Direct quote, yeah.
But it is interesting that the way that Jod reads it, it's more about his survival mode of forget your parents, forget your past, abandon everything, and move forward.
In a way, I'd argue that's kind of what the Jedi teach, though.
Yes, but
in a very extreme version. It's
not the way Qui-Gon Jinn says that phrase.
No, it's not. No.
Because when Qui-Gon Jinn says that to Kenobi at the beginning of Phantom Menace, it's more about focus on the present. Don't worry about the future. Mm-hmm. Don't think about the past. Jod is taking it as
a literal,
just forget your parents. They're nothing but trouble. Just leave them behind.
Move on.
Move forward. Yeah. So it's interesting that he got messages from the Jedi, but he never internalized them, nor was he educated enough in the Jedi Order to understand what these phrases meant.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it's interesting that he got sort of a half-baked
well, he kind of interpreted
Jedi training.
Well, he didn't interpret it, like you said, from a Jedi perspective. It was more of a, this is what the Jedi told me, but this is what the pirates believe. So he kind of mixed his pirate life with his Jedi teachings. That's kind of...
Yes. Let's talk about our favorite droid.
Oh, yes.
SM-33.
These shows just keep coming up with new droids to love and adding to the list of...
how do they do this? I love every droid.
Literally,
I love every droid.
I've not seen a droid that I dislike. I don't know.
Andor, just everywhere. Every time there's a droid, I just fall in love.
The Acolyte. I mean, they all have a nice little droid that we enjoy.
It's just...
Well, this one to me, SM-33, he had the most... each droid has their own personality. C-3PO is like a butler, and R2 is like a dog, and Chopper like a cat. This guy, SM-33, is a pirate, just basically a pirate droid. And I think that is really cool. And just the way he moves is like an old pirate with a peg leg, and his voice sounds like
the missing eye.
The missing eye. The voice sounds like a pirate that's had too much to drink, and like I thought he was like just a fun reveal to the kids, and I love him. I just hope he lives happily ever after with the kids on AT-AT. So
One of the things that I found really interesting, and this is sort of encompassed Jod, um, SM33 has a very clear sense of righteousness.
very clear.
He follows the rules. And so he's very good at sort of saying, no, the pirate code says this, and we're going to do this.
Right.
In contrast to Jod, who is shifting,
Yeah.
if the Jedi rules apply, he'll use it. If the Jedi rule does not apply, he doesn't use it.
Whatever
If
benefits
the pirate
him.
rule applies, he uses it. If the pirate rule doesn't apply, he doesn't use it. SM33, maybe it's because of droid mind, but it is, these are the rules. This is what I'm going to follow. And it is to the advantage of the kids that he's able to sort of have a sense, sort of his own sense of righteousness, but a very clear sense of righteousness that made him really fun.
Yeah. Oh, and I mentioned it to you before we started recording, but the moment where he got his head sliced, oh man, that was heartbreaking. That's to me when the stakes were, I mean, it was already intense, but that made it way more intense. Yeah. And then his return was triumphant. I thought he was going to be gone. I was worried that he would be done for and we wouldn't see him again. So super glad he came back, and I'm really fascinated about his origins and like the captain that he was working with prior.
Yes.
I forget the captain's name off my head, but
Renard.
Yeah, Captain Renard.
Captain Renard.
So that sounds like a story for another time. I'm hoping that we get explored one day.
That's a comic series to me.
Or a novel, yeah.
Or a novel. I like a comic. I like to have visuals.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Either one.
SM33 there with both eyes.
Yes. Before the limp,
Before the limp.
Yeah. That will be interesting. I guess that leads to my next question is, the show ends and it doesn't really tie into like The Mandalorian or Ahsoka. We don't see any characters that we know pop up. It just kind of ends with the kids AT-AT and being liberated. It's
right.
Presumably it sounds like they're going to try to join the New Republic. Jod kind of, sneaks away and gets away. Do you expect to see, what characters do you expect to come back? Do you expect anybody to show up? I'm in the same position.
I actually liked very much that we don't know the outcome of Jod.
Yeah. That
he stays in the tower and who knows what happens to him. I really like that. It's really interesting. When I was watching the show again, I kept having flashes of Jod being sort of this part of the story's version of Hondo Ohnaka. Because Hondo Ohnaka is also that character that I don't know when I want to love him and when I want to hate him. And I still find Hondo Ohnaka a lot more annoying than Jod. But it's really interesting that they left his story open, because they can do anything they want with him, and I sort of like that.
Out of all the actors and characters I think that would return, I think Jude Law showing up in a big budget Star Wars movie would make a lot of sense. I could see him being in Filoni's
he would show up.
Yeah,
he would show up in the Filoni's movie. Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected him to show. I'm glad they didn't kill him or he didn't die, because I would have been very disappointed. I don't like when Star Wars has a great actor, say like Giancarlo Esposito, and then we get rid of his character. I really don't. I'm glad they didn't do that with Jude Law.
Yeah.
So I could see him definitely playing a role in some way, and he may be, who knows, he may be a Mandalorian and Grogu. They're going to deal with like the New Republic, and pirates could be involved. Who knows?
We had pirates in Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, because the one pirate, Vane, he showed up in this show. I guess he's the only returning character we knew, actually, but he's not a very
but he's a minor character.
Yeah, he's not a major character.
He's a minor character. No Grand Admiral Thrawn here.
No Ahsoka or anything. The kids and AT-AT, and I would love to see where the planet goes and how they adjusted.
Yeah, but I don't expect them.
I don't expect them to do a show or anything. No, I could see that being like a comic or a book following up on that story.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Well, thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's fun to be together, even though we're in totally different parts of the planet right
14
now.
hours away from each other.
14 hours away from each other. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Let me ask you this, because before we wrap up, so where would you put? I know you don't like doing rankings, but I know you love Andor. Andor is clearly your favorite, and I would agree with you. I think it's the best made and the most intriguing story. But where does this rank among the other shows, or where would you put it?
Live action, right?
Live action, yeah. We're just going to do live action.
I would put it third.
Okay.
I would put it below Mandalorian and
Andor.
well, Andor is on top.
Andor. Oh, okay. So
Mandalorian is two, Skeleton Crew is
there's
three,
three. Okay.
and
Interesting.
Ahsoka would be right under it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Boba Fett is at the bottom, and Kenobi is between Boba Fett and Ahsoka.
So is it above the Acolyte?
Oh shit! I forgot the Acolyte. No, no,
Okay,
no.
so it's not above the Acolyte. Okay. Okay.
It's not above the Acolyte. It's below the Acolyte.
Okay. That's
No,
interesting.
to me is Andor, Mandalorian, Acolyte, then
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where I would put it.
Yeah, I've just
Boba
loved
Fett is at, Boba Fett is at the bottom.
bottom. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I just enjoy that we've gotten two shows back to back now with brand new characters and brand new settings, and
It's
give me
wonderful.
more of these shows, which I love. I love Ahsoka and I love Andor, but I really want more new stuff in Star Wars. So I hope we continue to get new stuff and new ideas.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, audience.
Yeah,
May the
thank
force be
you.
with everyone. And we will resume a real series of shows in the fall while I come back to the United States in the summer. In the meantime, is to teach Star Wars to the Taiwanese. This will be an
How fun.
interesting experience. I'm really excited.
Be sure to like and subscribe and keep a lookout. We're
Please.
going to do more stuff while Carmelo is away, and who will pop in
Yes.
occasionally. But I got some more stuff in the works that I'm excited to do. So
Awesome. Take care, everybody.
may the force be with you.